All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A here in the onocoffee channel. I'm Jay, your host, and we are here. What is it? It is the 16th of June, and this is another round of tasting of coffees that I used at a lecture that I gave on coffee at McDaniel College 2 weekends ago now. So since we're already past the week, but not this past Saturday over the weekend, but the Saturday before. And how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Let's see who's with us here. Marco, how are you? Kent, Halas, Halas. Sorry. Mom, Keone, hello to you as well. Naomi, good morning. So we've got today a coffee so these coffees were roasted, of course, by Matt from Park and Perk, and he sourced these coffees from a place called Coffee Bean Corral down in, I think, Jackson, Mississippi or something like that. As you can see, this is what's called the Mysore Nuggets, and it's a coffee from India, from the Chikmagalur district. And it's a wash coffee, 1,200 to 1,350 meters above sea level. And it's a blend of Arabica coffees, Calvary, Kent, S95, and S9. Oh, I didn't know there was an S9. But we'll get into this. What this coffee is something that's called Monsoon Malabar. And in this part of India, when they're making the Monsoon Malabar, I'm not really sure exactly what time of year they actually harvest there. But what they do is that they take the coffee, put them into burlap bags, and then put them into these open air warehouses. And during the monsoon season, where they have a lot of, like storms and things like that, they allow the coffee to kind of get hydrated. I was going to say wet, but it's not really wet because it's covered. But it allows the monsoon weather to blow through the barn, the warehouse, whatever they call it, and it imparts unique characteristics to the flavor of the coffee. And so it's probably one of the only places where I've heard this ever being done. And it's interesting now that I think about it. While we've talked about a lot of coffee processing techniques have been exported across the world, and so there's a lot of interpollination of coffee producing techniques happening. Like, for example, years ago when I first started, a lot of coffees, the flavors were very country specific, which meant that the way all the coffees were produced pretty much in a certain way. So you could expect that each country's coffees would have a certain flavor characteristics or profile. Now, India is a lot larger country, and Monsoon Malabar only comes, I believe, from one part of the country. But the monsooning idea, I haven't really seen anyone exploring that type of processing in other countries. Maybe you guys might know something different, but as far as I recall, that's kind of how it is. Mom's asking, are you using a different mic? No, not normally. This is the same mic. It is right here today, so maybe it's sound. Sometimes I have it placed up here, like depending on the shirt that I'm wearing. I have it placed up here. I was actually wearing a different shirt right before we started. Like sometimes it's up here. So this would be closer proximity to my mouth. So let me know if that changed anything. But I was actually wearing the shirt that's underneath this yellow T-shirt. And when I was looking on the reference screen, it was really bright. So I was like, oh, maybe I should put something a shade darker. So I don't know if that's affected or not. Good morning to you, Russell. How are you? Okay, let's get some. Gotta turn the water on. So let's have a look at this coffee and see what it's like. Now, if you recall, or if you're just joining us, this coffee I used at a lecture that I gave on, kind of tasting coffees or how to taste coffees at McDaniel College a couple weekends ago. And we brought 4 different coffees for people to try so that they would have a range of coffees. And we used, what did we use? We used a Brazilian sweet blue, and then we went to, and we offered them in this order: a Brazilian sweet blue. Then we went to a Tanzania pea berry. This is the Mysore Nuggets from India, and then the last one, the fourth one, was a Yemeni coffee. We're going to explore that tomorrow. But as you can see, it's fairly, it's a little bit past first crack, or first crack, because it's fairly light. Actually, this is lighter than I remember, but it's got a good light color to it. I think for those of you who are really into light roasted coffee, this is definitely more in the realm of coffees that you are having more like a light cinnamon brown. All right, so we're going to make this and give it a try. Let's get our fellow Tally Pro here. Those of you who maybe join us for this time, I may say something like, "This is the fellow Tally Pro." Not sponsored. Okay, let's have our. Yeah, we buy all of our equipment. Well, we buy a lot of our equipment. I can't say all of it. Some of it is gifted. Thank you very much. And some of it is, gifted, mainly gifted either from one of you, like Keone, thank you. And then, or we've got, because I've been in the industry for a long time, I have a lot of friends, and sometimes they give me things. And not because they want to promote it on the show. Most of them don't even realize that I do this. They're probably like, okay, so let's do some grinding. And we had good results last week by changing our grind setting to this. So we're past the halfway mark at 6, and we're just the first notch past the 7. So that worked well. So let us do this again. So how was your weekend? Everything was good? If I seem a little bit slow, I feel a little bit slow. Truth be told, I only woke up a little while ago. I was like, what time is it? I got to roll. My cousin is in town from Honolulu, and so we were all out yesterday till like 3 in the morning. And I was like, oh. He's actually going back to Honolulu tomorrow, so it's like, gotta get our hangs in while there's still some time. All right, let's get our kettle. We're gonna be using the Cafe flour dripper here. We've been using this since we started this series, so I'm just keeping it the same brewer so that we have relatively consistent performance. The Abaca coffee paper filters also from Cafe. I think these are kind of interesting. And I think these are different than the ones for the Deep 27, right? Like now that I'm looking at it here, you can see there's texture to it, right? Actually, I wonder, does the Deep 27 also have this kind of texture? So I'm wondering, are they using different paper? Let's have a look here. So here it is, the Abaca D27. Now, I just noticed that, I didn't notice this till just now, but as you can see here, it says Abaca Plus. This is just Abaca. I don't know if they've changed something, but let's have a comparison. Oh, yeah. Wow. Here you can see the texture of the paper. Can't see it too much. It's hard for me to see on my reference monitor because it's so washed out. But there's striations this way, or more like this way, or this way. Where this is more like somewhat of a lines but pebbles. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, so Keone with us. Keone says, I went to One at their new location yesterday and had some espresso made with beans co-fermented with koji, the sake mold. Really interesting and tasted great. Ooh, that sounds great. Where is their new location? Did they move out of the house that they were in when I was there a couple years ago? One finally got a semi-automatic espresso machine, but the barista said that the premium beans are still done with a flare. He says it produces better espresso. Those who may not be familiar with One is a coffee shop in Bangkok, Thailand. That while I was there on my last trip, someone that I was talking to was like, I asked him where should I go to try, really nice coffee, and he was like, you should go to One. So I was like, all right, I'll go check out One. I walked into One, and it's weird because, well, it's different. In Southeast Asia, people will have homes and they have walled compounds for their home, like the houses have a wall around them and a gate. And this place was like that, a fairly sizable house. So I walked into this coffee shop, and who's sitting there but Don Chan, who is the multi-time barista champion of Hong Kong, who I've known for many years. And I was like, oh my gosh, man, what are you doing? He said, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, my girlfriend is from here. And so I opened this place. I was like, well, this is amazing. And so you go to this place, and I'm sure with the new shop, it probably looks different, but you go to this place and he's making me coffee. Now, I actually have a video on it. Now, I have to admit and be conscious that the experience that I had at One may be a little bit different. And maybe Keone can give us a little bit insight into this. But, since he knows me and I've known for many years and he knows that I'm a world level judge, my interaction with him is very different than I think that most people would have, because there's a level of familiarity, there's a level of enthusiasm, there's a level of knowledge and interest that's just different. Like, meaning that he knows me, right? And so our exchange, and then he wants some. I told him I'll give him some input on because at the time he was also the multi-time champion of Hong Kong and was getting ready to go to Greece, to Athens, for the World Barista Championship that was happening the next month. And so, that he's like telling me, I got these coffees I'm thinking about using, and let you try them. I was like, yeah, sure, of course. And so I'm happy to try them. And so I don't know which one he ended up using at the World Championship, but so the experience, if you'll see the video, is I expect it's going to be a little bit different than what somebody else might experience. But it's real. But he made this coffee. He roasted it in a little ikawa, and then he ground it fresh, and then made the espresso. And it's really, I think maybe it was then that I was wondering, like, I wonder if it's better to drink the coffee right away after roasting than waiting. But it was the best espresso I've ever had in my career. And so I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, it was amazing coffee. Like, so I'm interested to know if Kieran, I'm interested to know if you might have had, what's your experiences like? Ken says, Monsoon Malabar became very popular when the modern coffee shop first opened in Norway. I think it's because it sounded so, I think so. I agree with you. Like, I remember first hearing about Monsoon Malabar back in the late 90s. I used to hang out at the cigar shop here in Baltimore, and the owner was really into coffee. And so when he expanded into a new shop, he built a coffee shop as part of it. And he started getting coffee from a company called Colony Coffee down in somewhere in Virginia, more of a commercial coffee producer. He actually was using White House coffee from New York City or New York State, Long Island, I think it was. And that coffee, to my non-coffee drinking self in 1996, thought it was very good. Like, I was getting like hazelnut flavored coffee and putting on 6 packets of sugar in a 16-ounce coffee with like that much cream. So you take that for what it means. Take that for whatever it might mean. But when he moved to this other company, I think it was Colony Coffee, one of the more commercial producers, it wasn't as good. Like that was my first time really tasting coffee that was pretty decent to what I started noticing that wasn't really as good as the other coffee. But they had one that was a Monsoon Malabar. And so he used to have this coffee set up in his cigar shop where he would just make one or two pots of coffee, right, in these big thermals. And he even had a nice brewer for it. But then he moved to this place and made it a little more commercial and went with a different coffee supplier. And I'm wondering, like, the coffee supplier he went to, was it one of those things where they provided with all the equipment, so that was kind of enticing for him? But the coffee quality was definitely a step down. But they had the Monsoon Malabar, and so I got to try it then. And I think to your point, Kent, like my friend Peter, who was manager at the time, he was like he tried the Monsoon Malabar. He had this whole story for it. So, and I think that people liked it a lot because, as Kent said, it's an exotic kind of thing. I get that. So I totally. All right, let's see here. Let's get our coffee in. Okay, we've got this. We need to tear that before Naomi's like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you remember how to use this thing? Okay, so we got 24.1. That means we have no retention. Excellent. Johnny says they moved to Lac Prau, which is about 30 minutes drive. Wow, really? So if they move to Lac Prau and it's 30 minutes away, that sounds terrible. Sounds really far. Can you get there by the train, or do you have to use a Grab? And does that mean that because I presume they lived in the house, so did they move to another house? Is that it? Or they actually built more of a commercial shop? Anton says, Anton, man, how have you been? We haven't seen you in a while. I was a fan of the koji fermentation because it was too mushroomy. It was the second coffee I just couldn't drink. Had to get, wow. I have a koji fermented coffee. I think that we should get. We'll give it a try. I haven't had much of the koji fermentation. One of my friends, Christopher Ferron, you might have heard of him. Fearn, Christopher. He actually writes a great blog. He's a great thinker about coffee. Really great coffee guy. And a couple of years ago, I went to go visit him out in Cleveland, where he lives. And so we kind of hung out, and he gave me some coffees to try. They've been in deep frozen storage ever since. Which I gotta say is, I don't know if we've touched on this a lot, but if you have coffee that you want to preserve, freeze, because freezing, in my experience, will hold your coffee pretty much indefinitely. And we have explored that because I told you I used to keep a lot of coffee frozen, not as much now because I just don't have the freezer space at the moment. But it's a great way to go. Jenny says, Anton, fermented for a very short time. It was really great. My friend that went with me was very impressed too. Oh, nice. I think that, it's one of those things where I think with any kind of processing method, the more you take it, the more you can make it more extreme. Like, for example, like the anaerobic processing that we do for our cold brew with Mirish Farms is that in many respects it's a very light, so it just makes it milky sweet, gives it a milky sweet character. Whereas you could take the same fermentation method and you could take it to very extreme lengths. And when I was learning about it 10 years ago, it was very much like it could be taken to the point where like it becomes very blue cheese characters, it's like, whoa, really like pungent and like. So one thing, what I mean by that is that, while, you may have had koji fermentation that has heavy mushrooms, I would suggest not to write it off completely, koji fermentation sucks, right? but more to keep in mind that depending on how they handle the processing, the fermentation, can impact dramatically the effect on the coffee and how much of that perhaps mushroom flavor is imparted to it. Good morning to you, Paige. How are you? Anton says you probably did it better than compared to the one that I tried. Ah, gotcha. Power plants with us. Hark to you. Good to see you. Cutie says the barista recognized me from my last visit and my experience was great. Oh, awesome. He showed and explained the different beans. One moment. Okay, there we go. He showed and explained the different beans available and even made an espresso with a very rare bean that they don't sell. Ooh, excellent. That's awesome. Kiona says he used to grab. Yes, they moved out and the shop is a lot smaller, but they still serve food. It is a street shop now and has more food. Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear they're doing well. Tusambaba, man. Good to see you. How are you? How are things in Arizona? I was going to say something like, is it weird when you guys don't change? Because you guys don't change your time zone when the rest of us change, right? You just go from like central mountain time to West Coast time, right? Pacific time. Here in the United States, if you're not familiar, we change times depending on the time of year. In the spring, we go forward an hour, and then in the fall, we go back an hour. But there are places like Arizona that my understanding is that they don't change, so they just kind of flop between the two time zones. All right, let's have a look at our coffee here. Looks fairly nice. So, Kenny, when you say that they're 30 minutes away by car, I'm presuming that you live somewhere in central Bangkok. So it's 30 minutes outside from central Bangkok. I mean, not a big, I guess for me, not necessarily a big deal. Because, Grab and Uber, I don't think there's Uber anymore in Bangkok, but Grab is not terrible. Grab is basically the Uber of Southeast Asia. It's not so expensive, at least when you're converting money, it's not too terrible. Here in the United States, Uber is I was actually thinking about this while I was getting ready. I was like, Uber is because my cousin's taking Uber to the airport. I was like, Uber is expensive here. And the crazy thing is that when Uber first started, they were kind of this service where you could use the app and get a black car in New York City that was, they have these black cars that are kind of expensive and they're kind of fancy. And it was kind of a way for these black car limo drivers to make a little extra cash along the way, right, while they're waiting between runs. And so I would use that. It was all kind of nice because you got this fancy black car for a lot cheaper than you pay for it normally. And you got to ride around. The guy made some money. And so, but as it became more democratized, I was thinking about it became more democratized, and now it's expensive to take the Uber. Like last year when I was in Chicago, I would look up the taxi rates versus the Uber rates, and the taxi was almost always cheaper. And so I would take the taxi a lot because I was like, well, why am I going to waste my money on Uber? I mean, if I was somewhere far away and I couldn't hail a taxi easily, I would call the Uber. But for the most part, especially out of my hotel, I was like, what? Again, I'm going to take that taxi. But now it's kind of expensive. It's expensive, and the drivers don't even make money on it. It's like, so we've reached a point of greater exploitation. Okay, so our one is boiling. Oops. I'm curious, when you're making coffee at home, how do you heat your water? Do you boil it like this on a stovetop? Or do you have a kettle? What's your preferred method? Okay, so here we go. Let's get it with a starter towel. I do like the flow rate and lack of extra volume that the Kogu offers with this kettle, I kind of enjoy the flow rate of it. It's restricted enough that, like, even if I'm pouring, and I'm pouring actually for this kettle, this is the hard. I'm pouring very hard. Oh, that's still kind of fast. Okay, never mind. I was going to say it's a little bit slow. I mean, it holds back a lot, but you can like increase it a little bit heavier. See, like now we're 121, 52 seconds. So we're a little bit fast now, but that's all right. Kent says he used the Hario Bono electric kettle. Nice. Kenny says, I'm in On Nut, which is right outside the central Asoka area. The ride was about 3:50. Oh, yes, 30 minutes. Yeah, you know, one time I was coming to Bangkok because my friend was feeling kind of ill, and I happened to be that part of the world. So I called him up and said, hey, man, I'm going to come visit you. I'm going to come out, hang out for a night. He normally lives close to you, Keone, in that area. And he's like, oh, actually, this weekend I'm in Hua Hin. And I was like, what? You're in Hua Hin? Which, for those who've never been, it's a beach town. So Bangkok is kind of like on the southern coast, like in the little corner of the coast of the country. And if you drive south, kind of theoretically going towards Phuket, but Phuket is far away. You're headed. That's the way you go. And so if you go to Pattaya, which is to the east, that's where you don't want to go. But you go south to Hua Hin, and that's where he was. And so I was like, man, he's like, you could Uber. I was like, oh, all right. Let me see what the Uber costs. Uber, 3-hour drive. A 3-hour drive from Bangkok Suvarnabhumi Airport to Hua Hin. I think cost me $15. I think I spent $30 round trip. And I was like, what? This is craziness. Is that right, Keone? Is it 3 hours to Hua Hin? Or maybe it was 3 hours total drive time, back and forth. It was a long time. It was like, it might have been 10 years ago. So I don't recall how long, how the details are fuzzy. You know, I was thinking that I feel like we're going, I'm not really paying attention too closely, but I feel like we're going fast. But if I look at the time, you know, we're 3:34, 3:20, you know, we're actually have good pacing. Power Plant says, I use a Zojirushi electric kettle. I like it because it heats up water very fast. It has 2 flow settings, 1 for slow flow and 2 for fast flow. Oh, so there's a control for the pouring. Well, that's pretty cool. The Zojirushi guys, they're very awesome. It can heat water suspiciously fast, like 800 milliliters, and say, wow. I wonder how they achieve that. They must be taking, but you're in Japan. Well, Japan, you're in Western Japan, right? So you're running 100 volts at 50 megahertz. Is that correct? That is kind of, I'm a little bit surprised. I wonder how many watts that the Zojirushi pulls. See, gosh, I like that. All right, we've got our Mysore Nuggets. Mysore? I want to say Mysore. That's American of me, but maybe Mysore. Even Anton thinks it's quick. See, and Anton is the efficient German, so he's like, he's like, I'm jealous. Kira says it's about 3 hours to Hua Hin. Oh, it is 3 hours. Okay. The dollar has lost over 10% of its value in the past. Oh, well, you know. That's because we're leaders and we're world leaders here. World leaders. Okay, let's have a look at boring. Yeah, my friend was like complaining because he does importation of machinery from Europe, and he's like, dude, and he's a distributor. So he's having to call back his customers on like $1 million contracts and be like, well, we have to add another $60,000 to your. And he's just taking a beating. I was like, I feel for you, dude, but you voted for it. All right, let's have a look here. Look at this clear. Oh, no, nice and clear. It looks good. Well, maybe there's a little. Actually, it looks like there's a little bit of maybe just a hint of cloudiness, right? Anton says, my Timor fish kettle takes a long time to heat the water, but otherwise I love it. Oh, nice. Oh, by the way, Anton, how is your espresso machine coming? Like, is it everything you had hoped for? Because I remember you're very, very excited to receive it. So how's it going? Have you seen what Fellow came up with, Fellow Drops? Oh, no. I have not seen that. I will look it up. Well, let's look it up now. Let's have a taste. Before we look it up, let's have a taste. Oh, see there. We're going to try this in a couple more minutes, but at hot, so the Monsoon Malabar. And I haven't really had much Monsoon, maybe just a couple. Since that time when the cigar shop owner had built that coffee shop and I tried it then, I really haven't had it very often, like maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 25 years. There's definitely a pungency to it, right? There's a pungency, there's a tightness. Perhaps the pungency could be similar to the characteristics, the pungent characteristics of the durian. There's a pungent, there's a tightness. Not really. There's a sensation of dryness with that pungency, but it's not drying out the palate like a tannic dryness would react. Funky, but not bad. Like actually, it's quite nice, but just really different character. So even though I say pungent, it's not that it's like bad tasting or defect ridden. It's clean. It's a clean cup with regards to defects. Just not, it's just the character of the coffee. And I think that the pungency is when you think about Monsoon Malabar, I believe it's the pungency, or what I would describe as pungency, that is the hallmark of this style of coffee, right? Because they're allowing all the monsoon winds and the moisture, the heavy moisture from the rains to flow through the coffee, right? And permeate the coffee with whatever character that is. And I think that's probably one of those things where I'm totally hypothesizing now. I have no idea if this is true, but I'm making a presumption that along the way, as this is happening, they don't necessarily have total control over it. Perhaps it's like drying barns in Pennsylvania where they dry tobacco. Like in Pennsylvania, they have these barns that the tobacco farmers have, and they have these. Basically, they're like big panels that they use like louvers, and they can open them, right? They can open them or close, open, close. And I only know that because as I've driven through Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania, you'll see like, especially when you get to like September, October, when they've already hung the stalks of tobacco, you can see them. You can see some of the slots are open. You're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So maybe they have something like that can control how much moisture or how much of the monsoon, whether they're allowing to flow through their barns. Actually, that might be really interesting to go and explore. Anton says, I love it, the espresso machine. Every shot is great, pretty much. Experimentation has never been easier. Oh, awesome. Glad to hear it. There are still many software updates in the future where we get to play around with new features. So I'm looking. So is it one of these things where, like, let's say they have software updates, will they be included with the price of purchase? Like, you paid whatever you paid for it. And so as they develop more features, will they give you, will those be updates that you could just download and install, or will you have to pay for them like modules? And the reason I'm thinking about that and asking them is, in the woodworking sphere, they have this basically a handheld or hand maneuvered CNC router called the Shaper Origin. And it was developed here in the United States, and it's owned by the parent company for Festool. And my friend Matt has one. And it's actually kind of a cool, I used it on one project, and it's pretty cool to use. But he was complaining the other day because evidently with the Shaper Origin, every feature that they have or they add to it, like you pay this, I'm like, that's a crazy amount of money. Like if you bought the full kit, it's like $3,500. And for every feature that you want to use or add to it, you got to pay like another $100, $150, $200. And I'm like, man, like I much don't like that. But I'm curious, in your espresso machine, does the software updates work like that, or are they including it? Because I like it. I don't need to be. I hate to be nickel and dime to death. Especially when you spend quite a lot of money already. Anton says that the creators are working very closely with the community. Oh, that's good. That's good. Tucson Bubba says, I roasted some Mysore Nuggets and some Monsoon Malabar Nuggets this morning. Ah, nice. So, okay, maybe I'm a little bit, ill-informed. When you say you did the Mysore Nuggets and then the Monsoon Malabar, so is Mysore Nuggets? My understanding was that the Mysore Nuggets was another version of the Monsoon Malabar, but maybe it's not. Might you do any little more insight into that? I probably should look it up and see. Anton says, yeah, the updates are free. Oh, that's good. This is not that kind. It's interesting because, like, let's say with Festool, right? Festool, they'll have like some software up, like the batteries. Evidently, the batteries for their tools are Bluetooth, and some of the guys on the forum were talking about like some issues with their batteries, and the other guys were like, you just got to update them. Go on the website and like sign into your app, and then put a software update on your battery. And I was like, software update on my battery? What? I don't have any issues, but I was like, software on the battery? What kind of craziness is this? But but since Festool, but like I said, the parent company of Festool is a company called TTS Technic. And then, which is also the parent company of Shaper Origin and SawStop. But both SawStop and Shaper Origin were originally American companies that were acquired by TTS. So I think culturally, the companies are very different, especially than Festool, right? So like, I think that, and I kind of see that, like the mindset of Shaper is to make more money from all the software updates. Which I think that's kind of junky. I was like, Anton says, actually something I suggested got implemented. Oh, awesome, man, awesome. It's good to hear that they're listening to the community. Powerplant says, disappointed fellow drops is just another coffee subscription. Oh, is that what it is? Oh, let's see. Fellow drops. It makes sense that it's called Fellow Drops because it's okay. Here we go. Let's see. Fellow Drops. Get the best coffees via text. No, I don't want that. Every Tuesday we'll text about your favorite coffee in the world right now. Only pay for what you want. Okay, well that's not too bad. You only pay for what you want. So let's say, one of the let's say they come up with a coffee and they're like, oh, here is, like let's say, I don't know what. Here is a koji fermented coffee that everybody loves. You can be like, nope. Just like that. No koji fermentation. Join fellow drops. Okay, if it doesn't cost you anything, I guess you just text. Okay, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. Russell says, oh, asking Anton, which machine did you purchase? Oh, yeah, the big, yeah, the Maro Model 1. Maro. Power Plant says, I hate when a company ships something with pay gates. And, oh, yeah, gosh, man. Like, one of my friends, she has a Tesla, and I was like, do you have the? I was like, do you use a self drive? She's like, no, the self drive costs like an extra like $1,500 or 15,000 or whatever it is. I was like, what? Really? Buying any of that stuff? That's just dumb. Anton says it's not a subscription. There's no monthly payment. Oh, okay, gotcha. Power Plant said, join means subscription to me, even if there's not a monthly fee. I think it's just that you're just on a text string where they just kind of like text you out. I think that's kind of an interesting way to go. Anton says, I guess in a way it's just an advertisement subscription. Yeah, that's definitely. Power Plant says maybe it'll be good, but no thanks for the carbon. Well, I mean, I from what Anton says, I'm gathering that it's a North America or just maybe even US based only. Although, let's see here. You enter your phone number. Oh, I guess there is no option for. Oh, well, let's see. Let's see if I use a +44. No, okay, that doesn't work. I was thinking that if I entered like +44, which I believe is the United Kingdom, it would automatically change. So it looks like it's only for US based subscribers, which makes sense. I mean, like in the United States, it gets especially with these kind of things. I think it gets rather not hairy, but it's much more complicated and costly to ship outside the United States. And who knows if you're getting shipments from here, who knows how much tariff you may have to pay. Yeah, definitely. There's that pungency. So it's definitely a quirky, funky, pungent coffee. Clean. Actually, this coffee is very clean. Like if we look at our beans, it's a very nicely sorted, uniform, and clean coffee. Like there's no visible defects. It's really a very pretty coffee, and on the palate, it's very clean. Like so, there's no defects. It's just this weird pungency that's different. Anton says, I'm often tempted by the itch to enter another coffee subscription, but it just makes no sense. We have like over 25 roasters in Cologne. Wow, really? That's craziness. How do you select from even 25? But I guess, there's always somebody that's going to be outside your area that's doing maybe something interesting that you're like curious about. And I think that's all right to give them a try. Can't be a bad thing, right? All right. Well, there it is. I'm at a point where I don't really have anything else to say. Like, all right, good. So the Mysore Nuggets from India, from the Chikmagalur district, is pretty good. I mean, despite the pungency, I think it's a very nice coffee, right? Like, I think amongst our tasters, our attendees at last weekend session, they were, I think that if I recall correctly, this was their least favorite of the coffees because of that pungency, that little bit of funk. I don't think people are really in tune with that. But one of the reasons we wanted to have this is because it has this kind of really unique character, and the part of the purpose of the session was for people to have a greater exposure to different coffees, right? To get more into other coffees and see what else there is to see out in the coffee world, rather than perhaps what they may be used to. And especially if they're, because a lot of times you go to your own coffee roaster, and the coffee roasters are going to have their own way of doing things, and they're going to be stuck in their own way, right? That would even apply to me, right? Like as a roaster, we would be stuck in certain ways. Maybe we wouldn't explore certain venues based on my personal, predilections and prejudices, right? So that's one thing. That's one reason why it's nice to try different places to see, or even if they're using the same coffee. I think it's interesting to try different, especially if they have the same coffee, right? They're buying from the same source, maybe even the same group of coffees, right? Then you get to see how does this roaster interpret the same coffee. I think that's a fascinating exploration as well. Of course, a lot of roasters don't want to tell you where their coffees come from, or give that information. Everybody wants you to think that they're totally exclusive to the coffees that they're serving. Power Plants asked, have you ever been to India? I have not been to India. One time I was in Dubai and I was hanging out with a friend of mine. And I was like, man, and he's like, India is only like a couple hours away. I was like, what? What do you mean? It's like on the other side of the world, so far away. He's like, no. He's like, no, man, it's right here. It's like right across the Gulf. Huh? Oh, man, I should go. He's like, oh, but it's hard to get in. I was like, what do you mean it's hard to get in? Because you're American. And I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, you need to get a visa. And I was like, oh man. So I had to get it would take I was only in Dubai for a few days. So I was like, it would take a process to get the visa and then to go there. It would be like, so I said, I figured I would go there and maybe I should go there. So it would be a good reason to go to Dubai again. Power Plant says, I think Pondicherry would be a nice visit. Pondicherry, okay. I'll have to, one of my good friends is owns a coffee company in Dubai. I'll have to ask him about planning that trip. He would know better. Paige says, the Malabar I've had is from Good Bros, and I enjoy it as espresso. Oh, nice. There's a guy, I saw his, at the show, I saw his, I guess, son and daughter or something like that, who have taken over the business. Josuma Coffee Company, Dr. John's. When I was in the business, Dr. John's, a little bit older, he's probably closer to my father's age, right? He would be at the shows, and Indian gentleman, and he's very much a proponent of the Monsoon Malabar, especially under the moniker of Malabar Gold, where he promotes this, and it's got that funky pungency to it, where he makes espresso out of it, and he's always such a nice guy, always at the shows, promoting Josuma Gold or the not Josuma, but Malabar Gold, and I guess he's older now, of course, and so he wasn't at the show. I was like, oh man, how's your dad? And he's like, he's good. You just get it. You can't really come to the shows anymore. We don't really bring him to the shows anymore. I was like, oh man. But Dr. Johns was always a big proponent of the Malabar coffees. Power Plant says the West Coast that was colonized by Portugal seems interesting to me, like Goa. Ooh. I know very little to nothing about India, so I have to look into that and see where to go. Senor Fontana, how are you, man? Good to see you. David's actually an old friend of mine. We went to high school together. He has a great channel on YouTube where he does a lot of videos about Baltimore. We're all from Baltimore, and so I really enjoy his videos because it really shows a love for the city and for our area. I love that. And then he also does some trips down to Guatemala where his family's from. So if you ever get the chance, David Fontana on YouTube, he's good. I love these coffees for live streams, but really love your long form vids on travel. Exploring. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Travel regions from around the world. Do you have any plans for more videos like that? Oh yeah. I actually have. I have more videos shot than I could. A year ago, I was telling a friend of mine, I was like, if I could edit fast enough, I could release a video every day, every month, every week for at least a year. Probably, or at least through the end of 2020. And this is like June of 2024. I could release all the way through the end of June of 2024 And I think at the time, from those videos, I've only released like maybe 4 of them because it just takes. It's sometimes it's difficult for me to find the time to really edit. Like the most recent one, the mocha coffee video from Tokyo. Like that took 6 months at least to do because we released it last month. It took like 9 months to do. Oh, and not because I was 9 months sitting there in Edit Suite trying to figure it out. I'm not a narrative feature editor doing that work, but it's just that sometimes it's so difficult to have the time to sit there. And then in that particular one, I think I restarted it 4 times. Like this is the 4th version of it. So I would get through it to a certain point, and I'd be like, oh, I really don't like that. Just trash it. And then start again with a different kind of pace. But this mocha coffee video, I'm actually really proud of that one because to me, like, even when I'm watching it myself, I feel like the pacing is really nicely done. And 17, for me, I feel like the 17 minutes goes pretty fast. And it's one of the longest that I've ever done. I was like, because I would prefer to keep them shorter. Actually, I prefer to keep the videos shorter than 8 minutes, even though most YouTube creators want to exceed 8 minutes. 8 minutes is kind of the mark off where YouTube will start to drop mid-roll, what they call mid-roll, so ads in the middle of your video. I prefer to keep, and not because I want to avoid that, but I just prefer to, like, because as a viewer, as I'm considering what to watch, I look at the timestamps and I'm like, man, when it gets, like in woodworking, a lot of the videos are like 17 minutes. I'm like, man, is it going to be 17 minutes of like value or 17 minutes of just like, I don't know, like, is it going to be a long 17 minutes or going to be a fast 17 minutes? So typically especially if I'm looking for an answer for a particular issue, I'm looking to like what's under 3 minutes, right? Like who can deliver the information the fastest, the most, because the shorter is the more necessarily more concise you have to be. But more to come for sure, absolutely. And you get to see me in a chubbier state than most of them. Anton says, yeah, the chubbies are insane. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. I really, really do. Which of the 4 coffees was the most popular at the event at McDaniel College? Asked Ken. The Brazil for certain was the most popular. And I think it's because it's the most accessible. The Yemeni coffee, I think, was second. And I don't know if it's necessarily, it's a great coffee, but I wonder how much of that was not just because it's a good coffee, but also because, when I described it, it was, it's an unusual coffee. It's a rare coffee. It's a more difficult coffee to obtain, especially since there's now a civil war going on, makes it all more difficult. A lot of green buyers don't go to Yemen because, kidnapping. You talk to Mokhtar, who wrote the book on it, literally wrote the book on it. He's been kidnapped like 4 times, something like that. He's been kidnapped. But I think, I was talking to another guy. I think I was talking to Mokhtar, and he was like, yeah, I got kidnapped. But it's not too bad. Not too bad. I was thinking, man, you guys have a different tolerance for discomfort than I can imagine the rest of us do. The power plant says, if you run out of topics, just tell us. AMA time. We can fill in the time. I see that. I can see that here. Kiara says, you should come back to Asia and Southeast Asia. If you come to Krumtip, the people at Wanwan will still remember you, and I have a lot more place. Okay, I was my brother and sister-in-law are taking my niece and nephew to both the Philippines and Japan next month. And yesterday, they're like, my sister-in-law was like, in Tokyo, we got she was like, we got an Airbnb with an extra room in case you want to come. And I was like, oh, what? So I was on my United app yesterday. I was like, 120,000 miles to burn. And I was like, oh, tempting. Would place me in Japan, and then I could But the problem is like, I'm kind of cheap, right? Like with airline miles, it's like I do have quite a lot. Like 120,000 miles would not wipe out my account. I would still have quite a lot left. But it's like one of those things where those 120,000 miles, and she was like, asked me, it's like, what do you plan to do with these miles? I'm like, well, it's, if there's something that I really need to go, like there's some really horrible pressing need, then I can go and I don't have to even think about it, right? But I'm saving it for that kind of emergency. And I have gifted like her and like other people like trips from my account because they were in need, and I was like, okay. But like those 120,000 miles, like you might think, okay, it's a lot, but you might think, oh, no big deal, 120,000 miles, you'll get more. But the problem is that those 120,000 miles represents a mile that I had to sit in a chair somewhere in the world. I was like, it's a lot of work. It's not a lot of work, but it's like those 120,000 miles represents seat time. And let's say like 120,000 miles, 120,000. Let's divide that by, let's say 500. Let's say 500, which represents the ground speed while you're flying. Average. We're just averaging out. That's 240 hours in a plane, sitting there flying somewhere. That is a painful 240 hours. So that's kind of how I look at them. I didn't get them. I didn't really earn most of the miles through credit card. It's like a lot of people do. So if it was credit card mileage, I mean, not a big deal. But those miles represent time in a seat, what we call BIS, butt in seat time. It's like, so I'm very, very it's very precious to me, right? It's very precious. So I don't know, maybe. But I would definitely love to come to Pro Tip and hang out with you. You're really awesome. Powerplant says, watching super long videos are deep cleaning days. Oh, yeah. Well, what I find is that YouTube, as a viewer, YouTube sends me like a lot of stuff I don't want to see, and I can't seem to break through that. Like what I wish, like it's nice that it sends me things that maybe I've shown some interest in the last couple weeks, but I would like for YouTube to send me videos from a really wide range. Like I'm actually interested in what I don't know that I'm interested in. Like show me something different outside of the realm of like woodworking. Like, show me more. I would like to see something different. But YouTube is really bad at that. Jenny says, United will have a nonstop to Bangkok from LA or San Francisco starting in October. Good month. I agree. October. That's what I was actually thinking. Maybe I should go on a trip because I wanted to do a trip where to visit Manila again and then maybe to Bangkok. And then I want to go to Seoul for a day or two to go visit In-young and her new coffee shop. And I wanted to, my friend Chiaki was like, let's go. I was like, let's go do a road trip. And I was like, well, I was telling her, let's go do a road trip in Japan. So just get a car and just, I don't know where to go, but just go and see what there is to see. I think that'd be kind of fun. Powerplant's asking, do you know the account Daryl Bueno? He's a great Filipino creator who does a lot of coffee content. No. Daryl Bueno. Let's see. Yeah. See, let's. What are they showing me here? Okay, let's look here. Okay, tips for finding your burst for buying your first hand plane. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Israel-Iran conflict. Oh, my. It's your channel's first birthday. Oh, nice. 1 year since they started. I like this guy. He does a lot. This guy, 731 Woodwork. He does a lot of like tool videos. I've been getting into some of this guy, the Tasting History with Max Miller. I think he's quite interesting. And the reason I started again because he did a couple of videos about Filipino food, like the history of Filipino food, and I think I listened to some of them. I like him overall. Sometimes the pronunciation is atrocious, But we're all atrocious at certain pronunciations. But he does videos about all kinds of food, so I understand it's very difficult to get it correctly. Call Me Maybe, this channel, I like what they do. Or Susie and the Banshees, okay, that's not bad. There's Sedge Tool, but anyway, maybe it's showing. When I complain about it, now it's showing me a wider breadth of stuff. It's also showing me a lot of Portuguese videos on woodworking and stuff. I don't understand it. What else do we have here? Andy Cooks. Oh, actually, this is now today. Today, it's not too bad. Gosh, forget it. Okay, so, let's say before we look at Bueno. See, I'm a subscriber too. But yeah, so like I said, weekends in Guatemala City, and then Baltimore. Like I said, so that's really fun. I enjoy the videos there, David. Okay, so Bueno. Oh, I'm not familiar with this gentleman. 420,000 subscribers. I'm jealous. See, this is. I mean, how long has he been doing this? Let's see. Videos, 480. Oh, wow, he's got a lot of videos too. All right. Oldest. 8 years, 5 years, 3 years. When did he start doing the coffee videos? Garden, MagSafe tripod. So, it's interesting to see this because he starts his channel. He's got all this kind of stuff: gardening and pandemic, homestead gardening, big fishing, car washing, Logitech MX keyboard. So it's interesting if you look at this, you can see kind of the progression of his channel, right? He's trying out all these videos, trying to see perhaps trying to figure out his passion and see where he can go, what's getting traction for him. Like Insta360, the Rode Video Mic Go 2. That's a nice mic. I use this microphone on all the field videos. Bike riding. When does he start getting into coffee? Here we go. AeroPress for beginners. V60. Here, this V60. So over a year ago is when he got started doing it. And 3,000 subscribers, and he's flown by my subscriber count after 5 years. But I think that I'm going to presume that a lot of what he's doing is he's doing a lot of equipment, and I find that equipment reviewers or equipment channels, channels that focus on using gear and stuff, do pretty well. And for some reason, I don't want to get too bogged down. I'm not really that enamored with equipment, right? I'm more interested in technique, and I'm really interested more in exploration of coffee and meeting people. That's just why a lot of the videos that we do here, the edited videos, are really focused on that. But awesome. I will subscribe to this guy. Let's put that there. Okay, good. All right. Oh, but the Bangkok, the only thing for me is with the nonstop, what is it? United started doing San Francisco, Manila as well, which is one of my brothers from. But I was but I don't. And I've done those kind of hops when they started, the one that I did to Malaysia was like that, which is cool. But I don't know. I kind of enjoy the flight to Tokyo and then the flight to Manila, even though it's slightly longer. I don't know. I just got used to it. So I was do I want to go longer? I don't know. Praplan says, do you know the... Oh, Ken says, have a great day, everyone. Yes, that's right. Praplan says, his Filipino coffee growing videos are well done. Oh, I'm going to look those up. I will look those up. All right. Well, thanks for the tip on the channels. Hope you guys have a wonderful day out there. Be back again tomorrow with another episode of the Coffee Q&A. We're going to be doing the fourth and final coffee from this coffee tasting, the coffee from Yemen. So hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night out there. And see you guys next time.